Now, a new opinion poll has launched in today that is going to tell us that, well, perhaps Anthony Albanese may have to think twice about how often he flies overseas. In fact, tomorrow he is flying overseas yet again. This time it's not to meet the President of the United States, the President of Japan, the Prime Minister of the UK. He's not going to the G7, the G8, the G20, the G46 or the K19. He's not going to address the United States Congress. He's not going to meet the King. He's not farewelling the Queen. No, he's going to New Zealand. And we love New Zealand. But the idea that you have to constantly fly over there when you could do something over the phone, a little weird to me. But anyway, one of the many things that are about to be discussed, well, Channel 9 themselves have told us just how high stakes this meeting of world leaders will be.
But here in Wellington tonight, the one thing everyone is talking about is the Women's World Cup. Australia and New Zealand are co-hosts, and until about half an hour ago, they both remained undefeated, but that's just changed for New Zealand. So I'd say we'll be hearing a bit about that when the leaders meet tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so glad that they get to meet face-to-face to do that. They also want to talk about greater ease of travel, including potentially people being able to travel between New Zealand and Australia, Australia and New Zealand without a passport. You can currently do it without a visa. But of course, the issue that people care about here in Australia, and no doubt in New Zealand as well, g'day if you're watching us particularly late at night there live, is cost of living. Now, take your pick. Today, there have been all sorts of stories, including people who are now echoing what we've been saying on this show for months. That people are frustrated by Labor's failure to actually deal with cost of living despite promising to do something about it. And despite the fact that they've got $20 billion more this year than they ever expected to have, the Treasurer is getting away with being able to say there is no more cost of living relief for now. Buggy. So, unsurprisingly, this is an example of a bit of a tin ear from politicians who think that let's focus on the first few words of the Constitution, while at the same time pretending we're doing something about cost of living, but not really doing anything about cost of living when it comes to the average Australian. At the same time, they made the decision to take $1,500 out of 10 million people's tax returns, maybe yours as well. 35% of Australians rely upon their tax return to help pay the bills. A decision that was made by this government. It made things worse. They've got more money than they ever dreamed of having, and more than they expect than having the next year or the next few years when we go back into deficit, which of course builds up the debt, which will effectively wipe out whatever special saving they're able to make with this $20 billion. Instead, no, bugger you, no more for cost of living. This is despite the fact that yet again today, more information about how many people are struggling right now with power bills around the country. Millions of Australians are going to get power bill hikes. They will do so all the way through winter, all the way through summer. And perhaps this political reality of every time you open a bill, get the email, or have to go to the shops, everything costs more. And I know that the Labor Party will tell you that everything's cyclical. Well, guess what? Everything was cyclical a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But they decided to make it very personal, and they decided to make a promise they knew they couldn't keep. One that I will underline every single night because they created false hope. And false hope is one of the worst possible things you can do for the people of Australia. Because as we know, while people may have voted with that expectation, they get a whole bunch of other stuff that they never assumed was coming because they were focusing on things like their household bills. They were falling for rubbish like your power bills are going to go down by $275, that magically 900,000 jobs will fall from the sky in the renewable energy sector. Perfect example about that we'll get to with Matt Canavan and Joe Hildebrand a bit later in the show, where despite an awful lot of money and renewable energy being built in some areas, guess what? No new jobs that come with it. So surprise, surprise, reality is now starting to catch up, and pollsters, as try as they might to hide the underperformance of this government, Australians have noticed.